Hey, you're listening to J and Cay on OpionatedCreators, where we talk creative development on Tuesdays and everything nerd on Thursdays. Today we're going to be speaking about good old Captain America, Stars and Stripes,
Start spending man with the thing.
right? So Chris, first, I wanted to start this video off a little bit different. Since this is your favorite comic book character,
I'm gonna admit he was my all-time favorite comic book character when I was younger. I've kept up with him. I haven't read him as much as I did when I was a kid, but yeah, Cap.
yeah, right. So one thing that his first film, since we're gonna just jump straight into it, one thing his first film actually shows clearly is that Marvel showed that they learned from their prior films, from Thor, Incredible Hulk, and Iron Man.
Yeah.
They learned. You can see, like, with the way that this film actually starts, you can see that they kind of replicate what worked with Thor, spending the bulk of the film on the character because that's what was important to them.
Yeah.
We find out that Steve Rogers doesn't really know who he is. At least I believe he doesn't really know who he is. He's trying to find who he is, and he does that by feeling that he needs to fight in the war. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I can see that because as how I took it originally, personally, even in the comics, he was always kind of that lost soul, should I say, looking. I don't want to say he was looking to be accepted, but he was looking more
to feel his importance.
To feel his importance, to be needed. And the only way at that time to do that was to join the war.
Yeah, and it's like this is kind of like we're gonna kind of jump around today, just because the points that I have on this film is a little bit loose. But this is where taking advantage of the setting and knowing what setting you're in is absolutely crucial to story writing. Because here they took a character who, for all intents and purposes, is an everyday man. In fact, he's less than an everyday man in the aspects of physical.
Well, how sick he is. I mean, they show his what do you call it? They show his physical sheet and all the illnesses. I mean, it went from asthma to bronchitis to to everything. Like,
yeah, and it's the one thing that I remember in history class about that era, about World War II. It was an all front to defeat Nazi Germany. It was all hands on deck. Women were working in factories. Men were going off to war, and so
kids was doing their part.
Doing newspapers, doing newspaper routes
sold and stuff.
Exactly, spreading the word, making sure that every person in every city knew exactly what was happening to their husbands, their brothers, their fathers, their sons, exactly.
Whatever the case may be.
And you can see that kind of that setting in Captain America: First Avenger, and how much that takes place in Steve Rogers' core, and why he wants to serve. He doesn't want to serve. He wants to serve because it's the patriotic thing to do. It's not whether it's like what he wants and everything. Even that line to Bucky is like, Bucky told him he can do anything he wants other than serve.
Yeah, and he said it's not. And what his rebuttal was, it's not about me.
Yeah, it's not about me. What gives me the right to not serve?
Yeah, I'm paraphrasing here. He goes, it's not about me. Something along the lines of, I have every bit of a right to do what they're doing. Something like that.
Yeah, which to me strikes at the core of not who Captain America is, but MCU Captain America.
Yeah.
Because in later films, we kind of see Steve Rogers kind of take that turn. He makes every sacrifice, he makes every decision in his life before becoming Captain America for his country. He becomes Captain America, then he does everything for his country until he finds the love of his life, love of first life, Peggy. And when he sees Peggy, then you realize this kind of shift in his whole character. It's after he's transformed into Captain America, or rather, yeah, after he's transformed into Captain America, and it's after he's done that rescue mission, and he's realized that he's actually starting to have feelings for Peggy, and he cares about her, seeing him make out with that random chick that pulled him over to the side.
Yeah. The receptionist. I would kind of say that after the battle, like after the rescue mission, cemented that. But I would think when he really enlisted, he just kind of knew that it was Peggy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, when he saw her,
subtle.
Yeah, in the training
definitely
camp,
see it build up
his
towards
interest in
peak,
her.
you know, throughout the movie. But I would say the very first encounter when when Erskine took him back to the camp, you know, he was, you know, she pegged his interest.
Yeah, and that was one of the themes that was actually concretely repeated in Captain America's is his regret of choosing duty over pleasure. And it's like the Captain America character himself pulls into question of duty over pleasure. Do you indulge in the things that you want, or do you handle the shit you gotta handle?
Right.
And it's like that's one of the things that I always admired about Chris Evans' Captain America, just because he, no matter how he may personally feel, until it came to Bucky, and we'll get on that in a second. But no matter how he personally felt about something, he would always follow the order, and because he was, for all intents and purposes, as people told him, a soldier. And the funny thing is that he never really had any training after becoming a super soldier. He went through basic training, of course.
Right.
But after basic training, he was after becoming the superhuman super soldier, he was a stage guy.
Right.
He essentially had no training besides the training that Bucky gave him, the street fighting. That was
training to protect himself on the streets.
Yeah, and that was very apparent. And it's like you don't personally see the evolution. Well, you see evolution in character, but you also see growth in how he fights, in the mindset that he has throughout each and every film that we see Captain America in.
Right.
But it's like one of the constant things that Captain America struggled is who is Cap versus who is Steve.
Right.
And it's like when it comes to who is Steve, he struggles with that. He doesn't know who Steve is. He didn't have to actually answer that question because Steve froze in ice 70 years ago. And now all the world needs is Cap, as Nick Fury said. The world needs you again, Cap. And it's just very interesting because in the first film, it brings up the reason why he does not know who he is, and it's because he just jumped into the war and just jumped in to fight.
Yeah.
And he didn't actually stop to think outside of patriotic duty. And then at that time, every American was was patriotic.
And not to mention, and then for people that don't know, they don't even go into a period. But going off of the comic book counterpart, he really it's really amplified that patriotic duty because he's the son of two Irish immigrants, and so they came over to America with nothing, besides working hard for the American dream. And they instilled that in them, and that just translated back, like you said, back then it was very patriotic. That translated into that. So, I mean, whether or not they wrote that into MCU's character or whatever, but I think that may have a little bit to do with it as well.
Yeah. And it's like in the first film, like I said, this is this is probably going to be a short video today because it's like Captain America is predominantly montage.
Yeah.
So it's like they have a lot of context, but it's predominantly visual, and they take full advantage of showing and not telling. And it's like you see the groundworks of Pegasus. One of the things that we spotted, that we think we spotted when we were rewatching Captain America: First Adventure.
Yeah.
The scene.
It's the end scene, or the climax, where the scene where
Red Skull is
in the bomber plane, the carrier plane,
his stealth plane, and he's flying out and
out of his base, and it's in a tunnel in the mountains. The only thing about it is just that tunnel looks so eerily similar to the Project Pegasus tunnel where they fly out of and stuff, and that's in the mountain range and this and that.
Yeah,
and I mean,
it's like you see like groundworks for so many other things, like Captain America's shield, the brief explanation of vibranium, and that's all that they have, and you don't even know why that's all they have until like future films, and you find out that like Shield had a dealings with Claw and confiscated metal from him, and from that metal they created his shield. Or rather, no, because this was in the 40s. How did they get the metal, and have they clarified that?
I'm going over a quick little montage of my own in my head. Not that I know.
Yeah,
of.
that was the one thing that they didn't.
The only thing that it was said was somehow Howard was gifted the metal.
Yeah.
And then he made the shield.
Yeah, but that's all the metal that they had.
Yeah, and that was all the metal that they had. Now, fans will know that,
vibranium is from Wakanda. And that was my point. That this film, it takes place it knows the setting, and it takes place in 1945. So it lays down what necessary groundwork. The history of Black Panther and when we talk about Black Panther in future videos, the history of Black Panther essentially in the MCU dates back eons before humanity. Yeah, essentially back to the first civilization of humanity.
Right.
And it's interesting because it's like they take full advantage. Like you also get some Asgardian history in Captain America. Predominantly, the whole plot is about what Red Skull mistakenly believes is Asgardian power.
Exactly.
And in fact, it's not Asgardian power, but something that Odin just happened to store there, which we have our own little idea of believing that Odin collected the Infinity Stones in his reign of...
Or at least went on a journey to try and do so.
Yeah,
and kind of gave up along the way.
Yeah, we think it could be because of Hela and her spinning out of control as a character. Really as his daughter.
As his daughter, yeah.
Lusting for war and destruction.
And the bloodlust and power and stuff.
Whole nother theory conversation for Thursdays.
Yeah.
But Captain America: First Avenger does a great job with completing, really setting the groundwork for future characters and future franchises. As the last film before Avengers, which will bring all the subplot together, which the subplot, or rather, will bring the subplot to a big plot.
Yeah.
Which in this film, we also get the completed groundworks for, or at the time, what was needed, the groundworks for S.H.I.E.L.D. We know that they're not only active in New Mexico, but New York.
New York.
And they not only have a base in Times Square.
That's the thing. That's the thing that tripped me out was when I noticed it. I realized I was like, S.H.I.E.L.D. literally has a base in the middle of Times Square.
Yeah, where they kept Captain America, who was in a coma, or rather, who was asleep.
He was asleep. He was coming out of.
He was coming out of his cryostasis.
Yeah.
His natural cryostasis, which was another interesting thing because like we see cryostasis being used a couple times, but only in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., who clearly learned that the science is possible.
We see it in Winter Soldier as well.
And Winter Soldier. who used it for their
for Winter Soldiers.
Yeah, their Winter Soldiers.
Yeah, for their Super Soldiers.
But yeah, like Marvel definitely knows. Like they use this film to take advantage of the setting, to lay down like different groundworks for like various other films. They also complete the needed groundwork for Shield to, because like let's be honest, Avengers may be a privately owned thing and about the Avengers, but the very first Avengers was about Shield. That's why it predominantly took with Shield, and why Shield like pulled everything together. And it's not until after the events of New York that each member realizes, yeah, no, Shield was correct. We need to stay together and we'll run things. And they take things into their own hands, which drastically goes wrong. Age of Ultron, which I can't wait to get on the Avengers next week.
Oh yeah.
Man. And it's like that one's gonna be difficult because it's like we should probably
look at all of them.
Yeah, and then we have to also look at Black Panther, so we might actually skip a week and do Black Panther next week. Yeah. Just because for Black Panther, he's part of Infinity War. Actually, and everything happens in Wakanda for Infinity War, so it wouldn't really make sense to not talk about him,
of course,
prior. So what we'll do is we'll do Black Panther and then Avengers.
Okay, for sure.
Well, Black Panther, Guardians, and then Avengers.
Okay.
And what we'll do is we'll let the audience choose. Guardians first or Black Panther?
Choose wisely, my friends.
But yeah, you see a lot of groundwork, like set in this film, and then you also see a clear application of the lessons that they learned from Thor. Like, for example, how they started the film just about Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
You see at his core that the person is the same despite the power. And that's what Erskine was like, looking for.
Exactly.
But yeah, that was like, the little points that I wanted to talk about today. Like I said, short episode.
Probably might be our shortest.
Yeah, definitely
ever.
Our shortest. And it's not that Captain America isn't interesting or didn't have character progression. He did have character progression. He grew to kind of stand against this Captain America, like the idea of Captain America, which is why he drops his shield in the second one.
Yeah, I think it's. I also think it's what.
Or rather, the third one.
Yeah, the third one. I think it's what Erskine told him as well. Like, always remember to be a good man, and sometimes being a good man means standing up or standing against something that morally, not going to say morally, maybe right, but something that may be right in.
And his dying words was something that definitely stuck with Steve.
And they weren't even really dying words. It was just it was an action. He just pointed towards his heart, just reminding him, that his big-heartedness, his heart of gold is what really makes him a good man.
Yeah,
and that's the whole.
He is truly the incorruptible. My favorite line was "Hail Hydra," though.
Oh, we'll definitely get on that one though when that video comes up.
I was so hoping for that one.
Man.
and it was like, it was just enough.
Yeah.
To nod off to the to the comics, and it wasn't out of place.
And our theater went wild when that happened.
Yeah. So when we start spitting out theories, prepare for those to be just straight up wrong.
Yeah, but that's the whole fun of it all. I mean, grab things out of our ass, throw them to the wall, see if they stick. Ultimately, they won't.
Here's the huge benefit, though, as as fans or potential writers who enjoy the MCU.
Right.
Not only are each film a great lesson of how to build character or a universe, but it's also, when you theorize, it's also a great lesson on how to potentially take stories and it builds your own creativity to like build your own original stories for your own ideas. Because I would say 9.5 or 9.9 out of 10 of the theories we hear online are wrong. And that's because, like, you know, it may be some aspect of the truth, but it's not the whole truth. And that's because this kind of stuff is kept such lock and key.
Yeah.
But it's like, you can always, like, it doesn't have to be the Avengers who, like, you know, go back in time. Like, if you don't have these characters, make your own. And it doesn't have to be spitting images of these characters. They can be, like, you know, the thing about personality is that you only have so many of them, so you got to mix and match them.
Exactly.
And it's that chemistry that makes your story. It's that difference that makes essentially your story unique, despite it being the same archetype as any other hero story or something. It's character that makes the difference.
Okay. And that definitely is true. Overall, and I don't want this to be a strictly Marvel, but Marvel they have their shit on lock and key. Like they're perfect at what they do. Like they have faith in the people that's working on their product. They bring in the right people to work on the product.
Yeah.
And these people are from they are fans. It's evident that they are fans of the characters. They are fans of the story.
And you know, this is to no disrespect to DC, but DC has a really hard, complicated time with these characters because how the world knows the most popular characters, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, these characters haven't changed in the past like 50 plus years.
50, 60 years.
And the problem with that is that the stories get stale, they get old, and in comparison to characters who have been revamped and freshed and everything, and to a company that's taking its time to revamp and refresh those characters instead of trying to rush and play catch up.
Right.
It makes a crucial difference.
Right.
Patience is the utmost, like, you know, most important thing when it comes to building a universe and building a franchise, and finding where your audience needs to start is not just the most intriguing spot, but also the most important spot in the aspects of story. Because overall, as the universe grows, you want your universe to seem intriguing, so your audience stays invested.
Right.
But yeah, Captain America though. Great
Still
movie.
one of my favorite Marvel characters.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite characters in the MCU. I don't know about the comics, but
I haven't read a Captain America comic in like
yeah, I mean
7 years.
I liked a certain explanation of his Hydra storyline.
Oh, yeah. One, see, and that's that. Initially, I wasn't okay. I remember telling you I was not okay with that storyline coming out because I was like, it doesn't make sense. How could Cap be Hydra? They're Nazis. Get that shit out of here. You don't do that. And now looking back, and just at that overall story, it was a really good story. Like, giving it a chance, it was a really good story. And
and it's like
it's sad that it wasn't well received because most of the fans had my state of mind about it.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's like, it's always an interesting thing. It's like, you know, when your fans are connected and devoted, it's like reactions like that are great, and it's like a double-edged sword. It's like they're great and they're bad. So it was a phenomenal story, and it's great to always take some character and put them always in a situation that you would never think of them being in. And it's like, you would never think Captain America will betray the whole world and make them submit to his order.
Yeah. Man. And I'm glad I went back and just like recap that story. I didn't read the comic or anything, but I did recap it. on YouTube or whatever. But it was a good story.
Definitely. But all right, till next week. You tell us, Guardians or Black Panther?